It is only through rhetoric and optics that political movements grow. From one person to a second, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8, and now some control the world, okay? If you want more people to get invested in anti-fascism, you would better make anti-fascism look good to them. Black Bloc just ain't doing it. I do, however, need to see Dylan being called white. I'm also white, and I take deep offense at being reminded of that.
I see a few people in medical gear. I see a few people just... It's mostly just chilling. That's really it.
Maybe.
Jammies, this is cringe. And I'm open the door. Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, I told you. Umbrellas are fine. Yeah.
What?
Umbrellas are fine. Told you. Yeah.
I think that's really weird. You don't think that's weird behavior?
No, I don't think it's really that weird,
I
no.
think that's weird behavior.
Can you hold this?
Reporting on something isn't all that weird.
It's whatever.
Really weird to me.
Why?
I don't know. That sounds really weird to me. Like,
Why?
who records umbrella? And are you like an umbrella advertiser? Why do you think so weird?
Wait a second, 1 second.
Like, not, wow. You
What
really
brand
have an
is
umbrella
that?
thing? Not you touching stuff that's not yours.
Wait.
Sounds like a white person. I don't know. It sounds
very
like
hurt.
Ooh! Dylan! Getting called white. Imagine. Couldn't be me. Could not be me.
a white person.
I'm Cracker
Sounds very
So why? Wait, hold on.
I came from the caucus
But it
mountain.
sounds
Why are you-
very
and I
much
came
like a white
down.
person.
Why are you automatically? Why are you automatically? No, wait. I want to ask.
What are you saying?
No, I want to ask.
What are you saying?
I want to ask why you're automatically antagonistic.
Dude.
Okay.
Let's get out of here. They're making stuff look bad. Let's just leave.
Yeah. And that is why the left loses, people. That is why the left loses.
Yeah, wait, so give me, were the umbrella people were Antifa, were they just being, like, mean for no reason? Like, what was the... Were they just being aggro as shit? Dude, I might... I'm not just because of this clip or whatever, but I honestly think I might be slowly becoming anti-Antifa for the opposite reason that most people are anti-Antifa. You know what I mean? I think I'm starting to lean into it, because, like, oh god, they don't want to be filmed, a lot of them have jobs. It's possible to express that sentiment. Also, first of all, if you don't want to be filmed, and you're Antifa and you're at a thing that you know media is going to be at, wear a mask. If you're wearing a mask, then the camera can sweep you, okay? Like, if you can't be, like, getting in the face of everyone nearby you with a camera, like, getting angry and making yourself look bad, like, wear a mask, you know? Isn't that what they normally do? Or at least ask nicely, I guess. Yeah, a mask and shades will protect you, unless you have some crazy fucking super identifiable characteristic or something. They probably assumed they were Trumpers. Yeah, but, like, why? Like, why be super aggro or whatever? You know what I mean? What is the job of Antifa? First, to terrify white people. No. The job of Antifa, right, is to act in like, protest situations, as the kind of a bulwark, protective group, against fascists. They do mutual aid stuff in cities. They do a lot of investigation, stuff like that, right? Now, a lot of that stuff is fine and good. But when you're at a protest, I really do feel like a lot of them just want to be, like, aggro and feel cool, okay? Like, to be fair, the desire for human beings to be aggro and feel cool will always be greater than their desire to be part of a disciplined political group. Always. No matter where you are in the political spectrum, that's always going to be better. You know, it's always going to be, like, the higher fucking order of priority. The thing is, if your goal as Antifa or whatever is to, like, protect people, I don't know what the point is of going to the remember January 6th thing, Justice for January 6th, because there were approximately 80 trillion cops there, all of them in riot gear. You know what I mean? So, like, what is Antifa going to do in that situation, right? If the protesters attack the police, then that's not on you. You back out. If the police attack everyone else, you can't do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, so your purpose there can't really do much with regards to, like, defensive or, like, line breaking. Like, that doesn't work with, like, 3 people with black umbrellas, you know? So why are you there then? Are you there to be, like, representatives of your ideology? I think that's cool. But if you're doing that, why are you going there being super fucking aggro to people, you know? What if you could, like, Wouldn't it be cool if you, like, saw the Antifa people, whatever, and you're like, hey, you're Antifa? I'm like, yeah, you know, we're just chilling. You're like, hey, how you doing? Like, oh, I don't know. Just chilling. That's cool. It seems to me like a lot of what we justify in the behavior of Antifa, a lot of the worst shit, is really just like edgy, like college students lashing out under the guise of political responsibility. And a lot of people on the left defend that because they don't want to buy into broader critiques against Antifa. But to be honest, like, I don't know how much good Antifa does versus bad these days in America, because Antifa's not strong enough to really do anything at protests, you know? But they're also prominent enough to constantly get negative attention thrown their way from the media. So I don't actually, like, know. I'm not against left organizing. I just wonder if this element of left organizing is vestigial or needs to be bolstered even more. You know what I mean? I don't actually know which direction we're going in with that. Can you guys point to any, like, W's that Antifa has brought us lately? They just seem like a constant optical nightmare, and they don't contribute that much to protests, because modern protests in America don't normally come down to clashes between the right and the left. It usually comes down to whoever breaks the police line first, and then the police settle everything. You do occasionally have Antifa working in, like, Portland and stuff, but that's not them fighting against the right, that's them defending their communities against the police, which is different. They do attack against the Proud Boys and stuff like that, but I wonder, like, on the logistics of this, you know what I mean? Especially since a lot of regular people don't side with Antifa, you know what I mean? Like, who would I rather have, like, fight against a Proud Boy? One Antifa person or, like, 5 regular people who might be there if Antifa weren't there? You know what I mean? No, I know in Portland's kind of a different situation, because Portland has a very active thing going on, you know, with regards to that, you know. Antifa has a long history of anti-fascist mobilization, and it's an important structure in case things get worse. Okay, but how do I put this exactly? Could we do better? You know what I mean? Could we try to do a little better? This is a thought that I've said before, by the way. This is not a new thought that I've had. It just seems like a lot of what Antifa does is it radicalizes the anti-fascist group to the point where normies don't join, which actually lowers the amount of participation, you know? Remember those, like, moms against police brutality? That led to a lot of people coming out in Portland because moms against police brutality or whatever are, like, normies. You know what I mean? Like, people will stand out for normies, but your average person probably isn't going to jump up because of, like, Antifa or whatever. Like, the mutual aid's great. The info gathering is great. That stuff is great. I'm just talking about the act of them being at protests, you know? Please don't be anti-Antifa now. Listen to the fucking arguments that I'm making. Don't just react against it, okay? The fact of the matter is that Antifa has gotten a ton of media exposure in the past 5 years, and the overwhelming majority of it has been negative. Not only that, but in only a handful of cases outside of Portland can I think of instances where Antifa's presence meaningfully contributed to situations in ways significantly better than what would have taken place if they weren't there. You can cite me examples of Antifa doing good stuff, but that doesn't stop the fact that the President of the United States used Antifa as a boogeyman for like 5 years. You know what I mean? The amount of optical harm done by that might potentially outweigh a lot of, you know, good that could be done. Also, a lot of people in the public consider Antifa an acceptable target. If the Proud Boys are going to bludgeon somebody with a hammer, who do you think the viewers of CNN are going to sympathize with more? An Antifa person in black-bloc or a regular-ass dude in a polo shirt? A lot of people consider Antifa to be like an inherently militant organization, so any violence done against them is a legitimate component of street warfare or whatever else. I feel like nobody's engaging with... Yeah, okay, whatever. It kind of is inherently militant, is it not? Nah, your average Proud Boy trains with guns. Your average fucking Antifa person is a fucking college gay person. And I can say that because I'm gay. And that's great and all, but, like, if it actually came down to real fighting, the people with the miniature armories in the back of their pickup trucks are probably going to win that. So Antifa needs to bend the knee because the media's talking shit. Dude, who's talking about bending the knee? Holy fuck, stop talking out of pride. Political organizations are built to serve the political needs of that bloc. Bend the knee. This is a pride statement you're making right now. That you have some kind of identity-based attachment to Antifa. You know? You need to let that go. We have to talk about what's actually best for the movement. And what's best for the movement is being introspective about the extent to which Antifa is actually helpful. The more normies that get involved in our protests, the better, I think. And there's no denying that a lot of Antifa types are like super duper haven't touched grass in a decade types, you know what I mean? There are a lot of, and I know this because I used to work with them, that there are a lot of people in Antifa who are like deluded about the prospect of a revolution, you know? They're like college students and they're like, yeah, just a few more years and we'll be building co-op farms in our backyard to sustain the local population or something like that. You do realize Antifa has sometimes been the only thing standing between minorities and fascists? That's the line that a lot of people drop when they don't actually want to engage with what I'm saying. If you want to, like, in the hundreds and thousands of encounters you can think of, I'm not saying that people who are Antifa have never done anything good. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying we have to weigh holistically their participation against broader action. By the way, how do you know that Antifa participation at some protests didn't end up leading to more violence? Because Antifa is considered an acceptable target, and the Proud Boys know that. The Proud Boys know that if they attack Antifa, it'll be justified more in the media than if they attack regular people. So their presence ends up galvanizing the act of violence rather than preventing it or reducing it. Like, you can't know that. You have to take the whole equation into account. You can't just go like, well, they've done good things. I know they've done good things. I've talked with these people, you know? I'm aware of that. It's just something that we have to talk about and consider. Does this not lead down the same road of they go low, we go high? No, it's just pragmatics. It's not about the moral high ground. It's just about maximizing potential good, you know? Because the Proud Boys have no concern with attacking regular people, but they don't want to attack those who defend themselves. Wait, the opposite is true. Proud Boys generally go after people associated with black-bloc. They're more likely to go after, like, people associated with black-bloc than they are to go after, like, random-ass people. There's way more of an optical, like, they're being given targets. There's way more of an optical problem with attacking random civilians than there is with attacking Antifa. Your average American probably thinks that Antifa is some kind of ISIS terrorist group, you know? Just tell them you don't think the black-bloc is utilitarian here. Well, I'm saying that, but, you know, I'm trying to justify that position. Anyway, the information gathering and the mutual aid, and even the presence of protests can be justified. Maybe it's just the black-bloc that's, like, problematic. I don't know. Black-bloc is necessary. What are you talking about? Oh, God. Oh, no. It's people whose only info on Antifa and protesting and organizing comes directly from leftist YouTube videos. No. Realistically, you could probably delete Antifa from existence, like Thanos snap it, and probably there'd be very little change in how most protests play out.
Hey, so I saw you saw the white clip, eh?
No, I only got 1 minute and 30 seconds in, and then chat stun-locked me because all of them are thinking with their dicks when it comes to,
I can just tell you what
Antifa.
happened if you want to know, right?
Well, we didn't even watch the whole video. What happens later in the video?
We just leave. That's it. It's like past that is nothing. Except for me just complaining, saying that was stupid.
People in chat said you got followed for a while?
Well, I did get followed for a bit, but I would expect that to happen, yeah.
Hold on, really quick. This comes off really weird from a European perspective. The Nazis harass kids at schools and attack regular people, regular protests. Without anti-fascist elements in protests, a lot of the normies in my country would be killed at protests by Nazis. Okay, you can go to these protests, but operating as... First of all, I'm talking mostly about America. And second of all, operating as a distinct black bloc might not be the only way to do that. Like, you know you can do fascist organizing without black bloc, right? Like, you know that's possible. You could just show up as normies, a lot of you. Now, I'm mostly talking about America here, because American Antifa is pussy shit compared to, like, oh my god, Vaush sucks, being against anti-fascism is fascism. Oh god, oh my god, holy shit. Diogenes, that's okay. You can come back after you've graduated high school to lend your invaluable opinion on the complexities of modern politics, okay?
Okay, fine.
What's up?
So what happened was we just finished up with the Trump protest, and there were some bangers there. We had mics, and all the mic battery died, so that's why the audio shows shit. But we had some banger interviews, and after that, I was sent a poster by some people in the area because, you know, I've lived in DMV my whole life. I know a lot of locals. They're like, hey, here is a poster for what's going down at Freedom Plaza from 2:30 to 5. I'm like, okay, I'll check that out after, since everything's done here, basically. And I go over there. And on the way there, I basically say, after talking to a reporter coming back, it's like, most likely they're not going to let us film because people like this usually don't like them being filmed because they're super, super, super scared about authorities seeing them. But we'll go there, see what happens, and see how the interaction goes. Because if they come to me and tell me, hey, can you leave? I'll just leave, right? because I don't want to mess with their bullshit too much.
Hmm.
So I go over there. We film for a tiny bit, and if you look at the clip, we're mostly pointing the camera at the ground. Now we didn't point it at the ground at all times, but once we settled in, we were pointed it at the ground. We just wanted to listen to like people speak because they were giving speeches, and then some people walked over to us with umbrellas, and all I heard was like a "Hey, how you doing?" And then it was, "Why do you like umbrellas?" And I was kind of confused, and I started figuring out what was going on. I was like, "Yeah, I'm an umbrella expert. What do you mean? It sounds like a white thing." And I kind of like, because I touched the umbrella because the umbrella was right in front of my face. And he was like, "Hey, why are you touching stuff that's not yours? You're white. It sounds like a white thing to do. White, white, white." I was like, "Okay, whatever, let's leave." And so then I leave. They follow me up until we basically leave all of Freedom Plaza with the umbrellas in tow. And yeah, and that was the interaction. They just made themselves look like shit. If they just would have walked up to me and be like, "Hey, can you not record?" And I would have been like, "Oh, okay, bye." And that would have been it.
Yeah, it seemed pretty cringe. I don't know. They seemed kind of standoffish. I think that when you go to this stuff, you have to be a good representative. Don't you think? What if? Why can't we be the red, white, and blue bloc? Okay.
I came with an American flag, and then once I got here, I was like, if I take this American flag out, people are just gonna assume I'm a Trumper and stick a mic in my face and just ask me Trump questions. And the fact is that we don't capitalize on the red, white, and blue. We don't use it as a symbol in our movements. And I definitely know if I was at the counter protest with American flag, people would come up and not be happy with me.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be more okay with black bloc if it was the red, white, and blue bloc. You know what I mean? Because like, what do your average like white nationalist or Proud Boy protesters look like? They look like good old boys. Yeehaw! Back of a pickup truck. Yeah, chewing on some goddamn scud. Hop. You know, America.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, amen.
Amen.
But then, like, you show Antifa shows up, and they look like a bunch of like evil, sinister, like terrorists with like armor and shit.
They do look as menacing as you could possibly imagine, right?
Yeah, I wonder
It's
maybe
like you
that's
took
what we
somebody from
need.
the Star Wars movies.
We just need the red, white, and blue bloc. That's what we're looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the harassment. We saw like bits of your stream. I leached off your content, but I tried not to leech off all of it, and I promoted you. To compensate
I
for me
appreciate
leeching off
that.
your content. No, it's because I was leeching off your content. It wasn't. It was debt owed.
I was dead owed.
Yeah, it was good shit. Thank you for going there.
Oh, thanks. Did you catch anything else?
Well, we saw your conversation with that woman. The one I don't know how you tolerated that. We saw the tall black guy with the red shirt. I saw that.
Yeah, that guy stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, and he's free.
He
So that kind
admitted
of
to it.
undermines their whole point.
Yeah, that's kind of undermined the whole point. I really wish I got to have a conversation with him about Ashley Babbitt, though. I wanted to ask him if he thought the guy who shot him was a bad cop. And she'd be like, because I know there's this big kerfluffle about the fact that he at one point left a gun in a bathroom,
Yeah.
and he got in a lot of trouble with that. So a big talking point for a while has been that he's bad with guns. And so my thing is like, well, I don't really think that's true because holy shit, he had amazing aim, right?
Okay, just that dude was pretty tall. Okay, just make sure you weren't in arm's reach when you said that.
Hey, I unironically felt super safe there from beginning to end, even when engaging with those weird Antifa people, like whatever.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that the National Guard was deployed in advance. There was cops everywhere, right?
Oh
here, everywhere.
God, we saw in the rotor stream, dude. Holy fuck, that entire place was choked with police officers.
Yeah, they were not taking any chances. There was helicopters everywhere.
They
from
probably
start
had
to finish.
snipers.
Like, I could not. There was actually. I looked at the Capitol, and you could see cops all the way up to the Capitol steps, all the way there. We weren't even close there. And honestly, I'm happy that it was better than safe than sorry. Because, like, I think the cops after January 6th were just not going to take any chances whatsoever. And I'm happy they did because I felt safe the whole time.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I'm glad you had a good ass time.
Mhm.
I'm going to continue yelling at chat for a little bit, okay?
Okay, dope. Thanks. And if anybody wants to catch the YouTube video that's going to be uploaded about this, you can find it at Dylan Burns TV on YouTube. We're going to upload the video this upcoming week with the best cuts, highlights. See you later, man.
See you later. Thank you, man. Yeah, we just need the red, white, and blue bloc, okay? This does not play good on camera, okay? I don't know, man. If you're with your, not just with like the right, but if your average normie sees black bloc strolling up, you know, it's like, okay, hello, good guys. Hello, allies. But then you got the Proud Boys. Yeehaw! Yeah, buddy. Just looks like everyone who's ever taken a selfie picture in their pickup truck. Yeah, boy. Yeah, you got some tactical gear, but you got big old American flags, and Cats just got a bunch of big old boys. Big, beefy boys. Uncle Barbecue Cookout boys. Yeah, look at them. Look at them. Absolutely. This is the future of Antifa. Can we agree on that? Guys, we get to keep black-bloc, but we have to, like, K-Kona it up. Does that work with you guys? I think that's good. Seriously, it's something about the way they come off, but even when they're in military gear, they don't look anywhere near as threatening to the average person. Now, when I see this, I know I'm looking at a bunch of, like, white supremacists, so I see the concerns here. But, like, in terms of how they look, they really do just look like a bunch of boys. You know what I mean? Yeehaw. Yeah, they even the ones that are wearing black, it's like it's a hoodie, but it's got like a logo on. He's smiling, he's got shades on. They're flying Confederate flags. Yeah, I'm not saying their optics are perfect. Okay? Here's a guy with a Proud Boy, like, Roman garland frame neck tattoo. Now, I'm not saying this guy is doing any better with regards to the whole optics game, okay? I'm just saying that I feel like, the reason why the Antifa types cover their faces and stuff like that is because they don't want to get doxxed and, like, harassed by cops, because they know the Proud Boys weren't. You know? Proud Boys, they don't have to worry about cops that much. Antifa, yeah, a little more so. I just wonder if maybe we need to do a little bit more community integration, you know? What if instead of having black-bloc be this, like, distinct thing, you try to make the tactics of black-bloc more normie applicable? You know what I mean? Because people who are a part of black-bloc are already going to be very far left and very into it, you know what I mean? But what you want isn't really black-bloc being safe. You want the average American to be an anti-fascist, right? I mean, that's the goal, right? You want the average American to be an anti-fascist. You get what I'm talking about, right? You want it to be a general thing, you know what I mean? So maybe instead of the whole Antifa black-bloc thing, maybe we tone down on the perceived militarism, and we tone up the effort at appealing to normies, okay? Where are the Antifa brunches, okay? Where are the, like, Antifa doing broader, like, counter-protesting efforts? Now that I think about it, we don't do that, do we? When it comes to, like, Antifa trying to organize people to, like, do anti-fascist protests, it's usually limited to within the in-group. Like, you already have to be really far left, and you have to be, like, super in with it or whatever, but you gotta go even further than that, you know? Yeah, Antifa pizza party. Get the folks in here. We want stuff like this. Which side is the good side here? The black-bloc's tactic is to make sure it's not easy to identify an individual by cops because everyone is dressed similarly. Other color schemes won't work, lol. Then don't do things that garner you attention. Random protesters, for the most part, don't get hyper-fixated on with, like, the media and, like, doxing and shit like that. Usually Antifa do, because Antifa are known to exist as part of a broader political bloc outside of that. Tell me, who do you think is going to get the dox hammer, like, dropped on them? A small part of black-bloc, or 400 people showing up for pizza? You know what I mean? If people show up for pizza and they're just kind of nonchalantly anti-fascist, that's what I'm here about, okay? People need to show up and be like, oh yeah, I mean, I don't like Hitler or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. This pizza's good. I don't like Hitler. Oh, are those guys Hitlers? Yeah, I guess that's bad. That's what I want, you know? Isn't the Proud Boys being digestible an issue of cultural racism? To an extent, but no culture is going to accept this as, like, the good guy uniform. How does that stop fascists, Vaush? Do you think Nazis are going to attack a crowd of, like, 800 people at a fucking pizza rally? That stops them. If they attack, you know what happens? The police attack them. The police aren't going to, like, join the Proud Boys in beating down a bunch of people who are just, like, chilling. The police are way more likely to act, like, seriously in favor of Pizza rally? Fuck yeah. Are you sure? Yes, please, please, before you say anything in chat, actually look into the history of this stuff and don't just mindlessly repeat all the fucking bullshit that you hear, okay? No, not every single fucking protest is the police chilling on the downside, waiting for the Proud Boys to attack regular-ass people so they can then jump in and help. It's more complicated than that, okay? It's way more complicated than that. And the more normie the anti-fascist crowd is, the far less likely it is that the police are going to side with the far right. Because being normie and getting attacked looks way worse to the average person than, like, Antifa getting attacked. The more left-wing the victims, the less likely people are to sympathize. And the Nazis know that. The Nazis don't choose targets based on political neutrality. The Nazis, like, at the Women's March. The Women's March was huge. Did you hear about, like, far-right groups showing up to, like, form shield walls and, like, shoot at the Women's March? No, because if they did, they would be castigated as a villain across the planet. Anybody who showed up and to antagonize a rally that normie-friendly would have been an unambiguous villain. But then you have smaller anti-fascist protests that get attacked because they only exist in response to even smaller fascist protests. 600 women were arrested at the Women's March. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Literally zero things. People get arrested at every protest, and also, that's not the same as the police attacking groups in alliance with the far right attacking those groups. That's not the same thing. How many people participated in the Women's March? Millions? 600 people got arrested? Doesn't seem like a... Not gonna lie, Vaush, you could have made this point with better optics. No, I think my optics are fine. It just really frustrates me when people's understanding of, like, organizational tactics is limited to, like, the YouTube videos that they've watched. You know what I mean? Vaush, every protest, including protests which had no black bloc I've been to, cops form a line between right and left. Cops always face left. Yeah, first of all, most of the time they do. And yes, I'm aware of that. And also, most of the protests in which stuff like that takes place usually have fairly comparable numbers between the right and the left. This is the problem here. There are far more normies than there are white nationalists. So why do these rallies end up having comparable numbers? What do you think a rally would look like if there were 20 Nazis and then 2,000 normies? Do you think the Nazis are going to attack the 2,000 strong crowd of moms and children and regular-ass people? I mean, they can, and if they do, they will all go to jail, and the story from that organization, that attack, will resonate for years afterwards. Remember that Charlottesville was considered a failure for the alt-right. Yes, they do in EU all the time. What are we talking about? I'm talking about America, Comrade Robin Hood. How many times do I have to say that? Over here in Germany, normies go to anti-fascist all the time. Yes, I'm talking about America. I'm talking about America here. I'm talking about America here. I've said that. Europe's in a different situation. Their far right is more aggressive, and their Antifa is much more, like, deeply ground in. They have a much stronger apparatus for anti-fascist action there, which means that they have a better baseline point. It's the point Dr. King made in the letter from Birmingham jail. In American politics, there must always be an appeal to the white moderate. Yes, unfortunately, that is always going to be the truth. Does BLM being peaceful for 90% of its protests but being demonized change anything in your opinion? No, because that's not what I'm talking about. When have nonviolent protests actually prevented widespread influence of fascism? Why would you ask me that when you don't know the answer? Hey, here's a follow-up. When was the last time a violent protest prevented a fascist government from taking power? Oh, that's right. It's never that fucking simple, is it? It's never that simple. It's always an incredibly complicated network of different political influences. But more often than not, it's usually about the ability to sway the masses. You realize that, right? The masses? Swaying the masses? You realize that's always going to be the most important element to any kind of political action? Vaush is American, so excuse if he talks about American conflicts from American perspective. Yeah, I'm trying, you know? It's partly why the Golden Dawn failed in Greece. So you're telling me that violence against the Golden Dawn was the critical element in determining their opposition, and that nonviolent protest might not have also been an effective way of achieving the same? And also, we're talking in Europe right now? No, the opposite? Nonviolent protests tend to be more effective than violent protests. You know why? Nonviolent protests have more normies at them. Nonviolent protests are less likely to dissuade regular-ass people from attending. Why would a mom of 2 kids ever attend a protest that they know is going to be violent? Why? The Golden Dawn attacked normies. Yeah. Example of popular violence stopping the fascists. A 1936... Okay. The Battle of Cable Street was an event that took place in Cable Street in Whitechapel in the East End of London on Sunday the 4th, October 1936. You're saying that if this battle hadn't been stopped with violence, that fascism would have taken over Britain? It was a clash between the Metropolitan Police, sent to protect a march by members of the British Union of Fascists, led by Oswald Mosley, I know that guy, and various anti-fascist demonstrators, including local trade unionists, communist anarchists, British Jews, Irish dockers, and socialist groups. The majority of both marchers and counter-protesters traveled into the area for this purpose. Hold on, let's see. A police escort was sent to protect the fascists. Anti-fascists built roadblocks in an attempt to prevent the march from taking place. An estimated 20,000 anti-fascist demonstrators turned out. Yeah, guys, this has nothing to do with America. There is no protest in America right now that would garner even a tenth of 20,000 anti-fascist protesters, okay? If anti-fascists in America were capable of assembling literal fucking armies to protest, then I would be in favor of that, okay? Then I would be more in favor of that. Unfortunately, that is just not the position that we're in right now. Yes, 20,000 black-bloc? Holy fuck, that's not even fathomable. I wonder if there are even 20,000 people in... Okay, so promote black-bloc? Okay, you're right. We should just ban. I agree completely. Thank you for helping me to see the error of my ways. We should just ban. Thank you very much. Guys, if you want to promote black-bloc, then make black-bloc normie, okay? Make anti-fascist action appealing and interesting to your average person. Don't get wrapped up in a highly insular, military aesthetic group of LARPy college students who don't understand anything about the modern political interest. The 1930s, those trade unionists and protesters that made up the anti-fascists in this group were a hell of a lot more politically tuned in than your average fucking black-bloc member is now. How can we do that in a practical way? The best way to do that practically is to stop making Antifa super scary. Guys, if there are photos that I could find from the Battle of Cable Street, do you think all the anti-fascists would be dressed up like fucking stormtroopers? Or do you think they'd be dressed normally? Something tells me the reason they were able to gather 20,000 people is because they were able to make a common appeal to those in their neighborhood through their shared political interest, rather than by dressing as some kind of collective political bloc that's exclusively shit like that. You know what I mean? The normie bloc. They probably looked like regular fucking people. Listen to this. Irish dockers? They had dockers in there? Like people who work in docks? Okay. Hey, if I'm at a protest, I would love a docker next to me. Do you know what those fuckers have to lift for their job? Jesus Christ. Fuck yeah, those will be... I'll stand behind those guys, yeah. They're just all sinew and callous. You know what I mean? Here are some pics. Fuck yeah, we got pics. Hey, that's what I'm talking about, baby. Riots erupted between anti-fascists and black shirts. British fascists. Look, guys, back then it was the fascists who wore black. Whereas all the normie anti-fascists showed up in what everyone wore back then, which was suits. They wore the scary off-putting outfits, and we wore regular clothes, because back then that's what men wore when they went outside. They just looked like regular people. And you have the cops here in the center. Doesn't black bloc prevent legal action being taken against protesters? Vanishingly, police usually catch up to people either way, especially with modern technology and the ability to track cell phones and stuff. It's harder to dox people back here. But also, guys, how much are you willing to justify based on the delusion that you can save political action in America by wearing a mask at a rally? You know what I mean? How much are you willing to sacrifice on the altar of that? Also, what exactly are you going to get arrested for? If you're just part of an anti-fascist group and you're counter-protesting, what exactly are you going to get arrested for? See, look, guys, back then, the fascists were the scary ones. Look at that. These are the ones look like creepy, off-putting fucking stormtroopers. The anti-fascists look like regular-ass dudes. The photos of these events make the fascists look incredibly bad. Look at this. You're leaving out COINTELPRO that is still active today? Yes, if you go to a protest as Antifa, the COINTELPRO is just seething. The COINTELPRO is just desperate to find out who the 19-year-old college sophomore is, if not for the fucking flimsy cotton mask that you wore. If only one of the most advanced illegal military, industrial, fucking intelligence apparatuses in the history of this country wasn't foiled by your 50-cent face mask, okay? Come on. Please read the rest of the Battle of Cable Street article. It proves your point. The event is frequently cited by modern Antifa moments at the moment at which British fascism was decisively defeated, although the BUF actually experienced an increase in membership after the event. I don't necessarily think I agree with that. I don't know if that's the point I'm making here. Hold on. If you really want protection against prosecution, you know what you want? It's not masks, it's numbers. If there are 10 Antifa people at a protest, you mark yourself. If there are 10,000, you don't. So make sure you're standing alongside fucking 99,999 others, okay? I'd prefer that. If you take off the mask and that puts more people by your side, it's worth it, okay? The police are going to protect fascists either way. Demsoak011, you are a hair's breadth from getting banned for your fastidious unwillingness to address any of the points that I make in favor of a dogmatic... This point really came off at the beginning as opposition to militancy and actually fighting fascists, so the normies could feel better, not gonna lie. Well, my point here is that you would have an easier time fighting fascists if you were with normies. Making the normies feel better means more turnout to protests, which means more of them stand with you. And the more of them there are, the less likely you are to get attacked, doxxed, or arrested, because it makes your protest look better, makes the media on the protest look more favorable to you, etc., etc. Now, it is true that the British fascists did actually get a boost in membership after this event. For the most part, what fascists want more than anything is news attention. Sometimes the best way to deal with fascist rallies is to not show up. They did that recently in England, didn't they? Back towards the end of 2020, or was it the middle of 2020? I don't know how long ago this was. There was a big, like, far-right rally that people very deliberately organized against attending as counter-protesters. They all showed up, and nobody was there to counter-protest. And guys, what does a fascist rally look like when there's nobody around them? It looks pathetic. You guys know that, right? Okay? Rallies look really dumb when, like, they're small and there's nobody around them. It just looks like a bunch of, yeah, just like a mob. And then they fought the cops, because the cops, there was only them and the cops. So they ended up just fighting the police. And that made them look terrible, and they got no recruitment from that. Sometimes fighting back against fascism publicly is exactly what they want. There are bad ways to do it, like with Charlottesville. But Charlottesville wasn't so much known for its gigantic, like, mega clash as it was for the murder that the fascists committed. If it wasn't for that murder, would Charlottesville still have been remembered as negatively? Is it possible you could argue that the death that took place there ended up doing more good than any anti-fascist protesting could have? The optics loss for Charlottesville was incalculably worse for them than any beatings they could have been handed out by actual Antifa members. You guys have to understand that stuff like this is complicated, and the solution to it is not as simple as Antifa protects people, because it's true that sometimes they do, but there are incredible complexities to the logistics of organization of rallies. And when you boil it down to stuff like that, you leave out a lot of really important nuance. Yeah, you gotta build the numbers more than anything else. And also, sometimes you have to know when not to show up, because guys, fascists can't do anything when they're not around anyone else. They can't actually do any harm. Well, you get 100 Proud Boys together in a park surrounded by fences. Okay. They can't do anything if it's just them. They can only act if they're given impetus to act. But they can? Not really. They start wandering around. Okay, and what does that make them look like? We know, because we saw that happen. Remember? There was a Proud Boy rally a couple of months ago where nobody showed up to counter-protest. Remember that? And what they did was they left the park and they started wandering around. And did anything happen? Not really! It was considered a failure. They spent months hyping the event up and nothing happened. They wanted violence. They wanted stuff for news stories to catch on to so that they could then get their talk show meetings, so they could go on the goddamn shows afterwards. That's what they wanted. Didn't Channel 5 go to that one? Yes. And there was very little. They threatened citizens. They were gonna do that anyway. They're fascists, okay? Showing up en masse would have increased the amount of violence that had taken place. They usually end up attacking people. And what happens when they attack people? What happens, guys? Do their numbers go up? Do the Proud Boys recruit based on the glorious victory they had while stomping on a homeless person's shelter? No. Do they get good media coverage? No. Do they get anything to victimize themselves over or play the victim over? No, because nobody attacked them. Everything goes worse for them. Sometimes not showing up is the best option. What in the fuck is your chat? Why is it being stupid? I've said all this stuff before. There are a lot of people who are just gripped by dogmatism here. I'm sorry. If you really want to, we can go over, like, the history of this stuff, but unfortunately, going over history is only going to embolden my point, because I have gone over this before. I remember sometime back in 2019, I looked over the history of a bunch of these protests, and it turns out that, yeah, for the most part, big, spectacular confrontations between fascists and anti-fascists tend to benefit the fascists. Because guess what, guys? Who is attracted to blood? Not normie anti-fascists. Fascists are. The promise of violence attracts movements their side, not ours. The more violence they're able to stir up and record and play the victim over, the more they're able to propagandize it and recruit from their far-right normie base. Whereas on our side, most people we would want to pull from are people who would want to move away from violence, because we appeal to the broader normie base. Most people are anti-fascist, even if they don't know it, and even if they don't know what fascism is. Yes, this is why Artemis scratched me. Also, the less video coverage you allow, the less you get to show your side of the story. Yeah, if you want to attend, like, fascist protests, then just do what Channel 5 does. Just show up with cameras. Just don't identify yourself, you know? Just say, oh, I'm a YouTuber. Don't identify yourself. If they're able to identify you because your face is identifiable, then don't go. Then don't go. Don't go unless there's police protection. If you're able to act normie, or like chill, or if you have some kind of rapport that allows you to get away with being in those circles, then just go. Record it. Record them being dumb as fuck. I'm a little confused. Should we not counter-protest? Sometimes counter-protests aren't productive, especially when the people you're counter-protesting are just looking for, like, news attention. Look at Andy No. Andy No has an entire fucking media career built off of looking at violence between fascists and anti-fascists and selectively clipping it in order to make the anti-fascists the victors and the fascists the victims. He, like, runs like a 1-2 gamut with the Proud Boys and the other groups like that. He's explicitly making an effort to take advantage of the conflicts that are there, to do as much with them as possible. What do you think Andy No has to work with if nobody shows up at a protest? BLM was like 97% peaceful. They still made it look violent. Yeah, but that's not about fascists versus anti-fascists. That's about a broader civil rights movement. That's different. We're talking about different things. That's a years-long, thousands of protests across the country amalgam of different, like, protests, you know? It's different from, like, a specific protest with fascists and anti-fascists. This wouldn't help normies. This would help neoliberals and the FBI. Neoliberal. Do you have any idea how online you sound? Neoliberals. Why would you even bring up neoliberals in a conversation about protesting and organizational tactics? You don't even fucking know what that means, do you? What do you imagine when you say neoliberals? What does neoliberal economic policy and austerity procedures have to do with what we're talking? To you, it's just a boogeyman term. The FBI? Yeah, dude, the FBI is super on board with fascists organizing in this country. That's why the FBI has been consistently warning about far-right infiltration of the police for decades. The FBI is not pro-fascist. The FBI is pro-establishment. And the establishment may be anti-us, but not in the same way that the Proud Boys are. The Proud Boys are riddled with feds who are constantly looking at evidence against them. The Proud Boys are riddled with them. The feds are going after the fucking Charlottesville, the January 6th Capitol protesters. They're neither of our allies. Yeah, they acknowledge that the far-right violence is the most significant domestic terror threat, yeah. Isn't the FBI just the peak of neoliberalism, though? No, that's not what that means. Go get a smart Antifa defender. I'd have to do my... The problem is that if I talk to an Antifa defender, like, you realize most of them are going to talk about this shit the same way a soldier would talk about war, right? Like, if I bring a soldier on, like, hey, man, do you think it was necessary for us to go in there? And they'd be like, me and my brothers served for years. The thing I saw, children blown apart in seconds by explosive devices. You know, like, I'm going to get, like, harrowing war stories where their heroism, like, saved the day. I want, like, historical data on this stuff, you know? Your ideas Antifa has been diluted with mainstream moves. Then why did I do work with them for years? You've never, ooh, you guys. You don't know, do you? I don't think the way about the left that I do because I'm unfamiliar with them. It's because I'm more familiar with them than you, okay? Because your exposure to the left has been dictated entirely by fucking YouTube videos, okay? I've spent enough time with the left to know that, actually, we are not the perfect moral and optical arbiters of everything that is valuable to our society, okay? We are not actually the best versions of ourselves. Nah, Vaush is right about this stuff. The heavy Antifa people are the same ones that saying converting the right isn't worthwhile, the right doesn't deserve to be trusted or saved. Yeah. There are a lot who are like that. Not all of them, but... Can you make some conclusion? Chat is stunlocked so much I'm confused. Oh god, we're so stunlocked. Oh my god. By the way, guys, none of what I'm saying right now should really be controversial, okay? Let's just lay out some quick facts, okay? Antifa black-bloc is alienating to normies. That's a fact. We're just going to lay out facts here, okay? It is. It's alienating to normies, okay? Fact number 2 is, things that alienate normies make it more difficult for normies to participate in anti-fascist protests. That's obviously, that follows. That's like, if they alienate, then that would make it less likely. That follows naturally, okay? Number 3, the more people are at a protest, the more likely that protest is the more people are on our side of a protest, the more likely those people are to be safe. The smaller the numbers are, the easier they are to attack, right? I think that's an easy one. Obviously, strength in numbers. That's like, that's not even 101. That's like 100. That's like very simple stuff, okay? 5, the easiest pool to pull from with regards to building larger protests is normies. There aren't that many Antifa types, billions of normies in the world, so the more easily we can appeal to normies, the more easily we can build large crowds. Okay? That's 5 facts so far, okay? Number 6, we could probably do to reevaluate the ways in which we attempt to impress the importance of anti-fascism upon the normie, okay? Most people associate anti-fascism with black-bloc, and while that's not necessarily unfair, you could probably attract a lot more people, get more people interested, and maybe get more involved themselves if you make it clear that what you're really trying to do is provide a broader community opposition to the entrenchment of fascism. You're not some equal opposite military force. You're making an effort to keep the community safe. You're as much opposed to fascists as you would be to, like, terrorists coming in. You're just trying to oppose them to keep things safe, okay? Number 7, Antifa should focus on controlled rule breaking, okay? Sometimes Antifa breaks shit for the sake of breaking shit. I'm sorry, breaking windows and turning over trash cans has nothing to do with being a leftist advocate. It has everything to do with feeling cool in the moment. You will never move me off that, okay? There are a lot of things that people in Antifa do, a lot of stuff that leads them to then justify wearing masks because they don't want to get caught by the police that isn't justifiable, you know? I get you wearing a mask if you're going over there to commit meaningless crimes, but if you don't commit meaningless crimes, you might not need to... It might somewhat lessen the antagonism both normies and the police have towards you, okay? Trust me, if your goal is to protect the community, it doesn't feel like it when Antifa march through a neighborhood and then later the community has to clean up broken glass shards, okay? That doesn't make the community feel like you're acting in their best interest. It makes you feel like you're just another marauding gang of assholes. The difference is, this marauding gang of assholes flies a flag. So you might want to work on appealing yourself a little bit to the common, you know, discourse to compensate for whatever optical hit you're going to take for not looking like a bunch of K-Kona Yeehaw brothers, okay? So far, I think all these things are facts, okay? I think this is really agreeable so far, right? Are we on board with that so far? Okay, great. Yes, 100%, okay? I know that playing to optics feels dumb, but at the end of the day, without optics, every political movement is composed of exactly one person. It is only through rhetoric and optics that political movements grow. From 1 person to a second, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8, and now some control the world, okay? If you want more people to get invested in anti-fascism, you would better make anti-fascism look good to them. Black Bloc just ain't doing it, you know? Maybe direct overt organizing isn't really doing it either. Maybe the best thing that you could do is focus on stuff that doesn't actually rally around the common banner of anti-fascism. which to a lot of people is tainted by black-bloc. Maybe the best thing that you could do is try to rebrand it as community defense, you know? Because that kind of sounds politically neutral. That's community defense, and hey, there are a bunch of fascists coming around, and you can talk about how the Proud Boys have been associated with death, or how they bring guns into the neighborhood, and how they're violent, and how they commit crime and cause violence, and maybe you could use that as a rallying cry. Like Neighborhood Watch, which is not really a political organization in the way people tend to think of political organizations to be, though, of course, in practice, Neighborhood Watches tend to have, like, right-leaning vibes because they get... That's complicated. That's a whole other thing, okay? But maybe we could rebrand a little bit. Maybe not like all the black-bloc types suddenly become like community defense officers, but maybe there are ways to adjust that. I'm not saying I have the answers to this. I'm only saying that there have to be more answers than this, right? There have to be more answers than this, right? We should ask fair questions about the extent to which this is the most optimal expression of counter-fascist protesting, you know? Is it? Is this the best? I feel like we just kind of settle on it dogmatically now, you know? People are like, oh yeah, black-bloc protects us from fascists. Has it protected us from fascists? Maybe sometimes it has. Is it possible another slightly different organization with similar goals could do it better? And maybe get less bad media attention on the way over? Possibly. I think so. But talking about that, that's complicated. I'm just saying we should explore the possibility. And then, so everything I've said so far, I feel like is pretty agreeable. Last couple points, okay? We should also explore the potential value of not showing up to counter-protest at all. Because fascists organize and recruit based on a sense of victimhood. The white race is under attack. Real Americans are under attack. The federal government is using Jewish propaganda to, etc., etc. So when fascists get attacked, or more commonly, attack and then get counterattacked, people will selectively clip those videos to favor the fascists, and they'll use them to spread around in alternative media sites and propagate misinformation and recruit from them. Whereas if nothing happens at all, it's a waste of their time and energy. Sometimes people from fascist groups will move across entire states to attend protests. How do you think it makes them feel when nobody shows up? I'll tell you what it makes them feel like. It makes them feel like Richard Spencer, who has publicly commented that his interest in Nazi organizing has diminished significantly the fewer people show up to his protests and to his lectures and meetings. It makes them feel impotent. How do you think a person feels when they live in Kentucky and they drive all the way to Portland to attend a Proud Boys rally? They bring their guns, they bring everything, and then nobody shows up. They mill around in a park for 3 hours. A couple people show up with cameras to take pictures. Maybe at one point somebody like gets in a scuffle and gets broken up and somebody gets arrested. It's not like they came there for violence. Doesn't normalize them. I think it stigmatizes them and makes them small and insignificant, like sea lioners coming out there desperate for attention, not getting any. They come out there and they look cringe, you know? They look marginalized. You take photos of them behind, like, police barricades where there are just 100 people milling in a park with nobody giving a fuck. That doesn't make them look normal. That makes them look pathetic. What makes them look normal is when they have large crowds, large speaking roles, and media attention being delivered by constant violence between them and counter-protesters. What makes them look normal is the Proud Boys getting acknowledged on the presidential debate stage by Joe Biden and by Donald Trump because their violence ends up celebrating them and throwing them to the height of media attention. If it weren't for the violence that they brought upon themselves through their actions, the Proud Boys would have been nothing more than a tiny ragtag group of misogynists like white chauvinists. But they didn't, did they? They caused a lot of violence, and they got a lot of attention, and the attention they got ended up getting them the acknowledgement of the most powerful human on earth. That attention is the currency they deal in, but it's not attention we can take advantage of. Proud Boy has a leader. Proud Boy has a leader with a name that gets media attention. Does Antifa have a leader? No. Does our side of the story ever get taught? No. Do anti-fascists have strong, charismatic leaders who the media turns to get their side of the violence that happens at these protests? No. Our organizational tactics deny us the ability to effectively play to the news outlets. the CEO of Antifa. I'm not saying there needs to be like a leader of Antifa. I'm saying that it doesn't make us look good when there's nobody to speak for us. It allows everybody else to give us our narratives. Black Bloc shows up, they break windows, they get in a fight, and then who controls the media cycle afterwards? The Proud Boys. Because they actually talk. They actually make statements to journalists. They get to frame the conversation because they're the only ones speaking. Nobody in Black Bloc is going to. First of all, because they're decentralized, and second of all, because most of Black Bloc are just, let's be real, not media savvy. Enrique Tarrio, that's his name, right? The leader of the Proud Boys, is a media-trained, public-speaking, I would almost go so far as to say genius. I think that he's really effective at public speaking. There's a reason why he leads the Proud Boys. If one of these people gets stopped by a reporter, what do you think the odds are that one random member of Black Bloc is going to be an effective advocate for our side of things in a way which not only defends us morally, but appeals to the general public? The answer is nil. It's never going to happen. And the few times that people in Black Bloc or associated with Black Bloc have talked to the media, it usually doesn't look good, does it? You guys have noticed that, right? I can't remember any specific examples, but I have like, generally speaking, when the Black Bloc, any member of it, anyone Antifa-ish, they talk to like journalists, they come off like hardline demagogues. They come off like fanatics, which they shouldn't because they're not. They're anti-fascists. The Proud Boys are fanatics, but they put effort into appearing as though they're not. When you talk to Enrique, he doesn't sound like a fanatic. I've seen him talk publicly. I saw him on Tim Pool Live, right before I went on Tim Pool Live. That guy does not sound like the leader of the Proud Boys. He sounds like a calm advocate for a set of reasonable positions that most Americans would agree with. He comes off a little bit like chauvinist and like frat boy-y, but that's kind of a part of the appeal. And a lot of Americans like frat boys. So he works. It works for him. You understand what I'm saying? I hope you understand my perspective now that I'm trying to frame it a little bit more coherently and not just yelling at chat. That these are all things we have to take into consideration when it comes to effectively advocating for what we believe in. The context of this is going to change depending on whether you're in America or Europe. There's a ton of stuff that goes into this. Many complexities. But as a general rule, I will always favor appealing to normies as a general virtue. Because if you can't do that, you can't win political favor. It's not possible to win political favor if you can't appeal to normies, you know? And if you can't win political favor, you lose attendance, you don't get as many people on your side, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Have you watched Philosophy Tube's video on Antifa? Yes, I don't think it contradicts anything that I'm saying here. You know? Can this be a segment? That's up to my editors. So basically this, how to plan a peaceful protest. Assemble. Gather like-minded people and make a case for why a protest action is necessary. Be sure to exchange contact info and keep people updated throughout the planning process. True. Organize. Designate an effective mode of leadership or agree to opt for a more open, non-hierarchical structure. If you think media is going to be there, by the way, you might need a mode of leadership. You want somebody with media training in front of the cameras. The average person cannot talk to a journalist without looking like a dumbass. Of any political disposition. If you know the media is going to be there, you at least want a person as a designated spokesman for the media. Whether or not they're wearing a mask, that's the person you want to talk to. Define. With your fellow protesters, carefully articulate what goals you hope to accomplish, what message you wish to convey, and what audience you seek to reach. Remember how the Occupy Wall Street protests did exactly not this? Alternatively, you may want to stage a looser, more open-ended demonstration. Maybe. At public universities, free speech that does not incite violence or destruction is legally protected under the First Amendment. At private universities, there are usually set policies for handling speech. All universities may impose what are called time, place, and manner restrictions that specify when and where protests may occur. These policies must not be discriminatory and must be content neutral. Read up on your school's policies on school gatherings. Make sure that your protest complies with time, place, and manner restrictions and that it is held in a public forum. Do not block doors, please God do not block doors, or physically prevent any other event, demonstration, or speech from taking place. Let your school know the details of when and where you are... Oh, some people are going to get mad at this, by the way. If somebody like Milo Yiannopoulos is doing a speech at a school, there is nothing that he wants more than a rock to be thrown at his face. Please keep that in mind, okay? There is nothing they delight in more than all of the attention they get to milk afterwards. Remember how somebody, like, breathed in Andy No's direction and he got brain damage or something and he dropped his beans in the movie theater? They are begging for it. It may be funny sometimes. In fact, I think milkshakes were actually one of the best invocations of that sort of thing, because a milkshake doesn't make a person look empathetic or sympathizable. It makes them look pathetic, like with Sargon. If you're, like, covered in a vanilla milkshake and your whole face looks like you've been bukkakied by a fucking blue whale, you know, that looks kind of silly. Whereas if a rock gets thrown at your face, I mean, blood trickles down your face, and it makes you look more like a victim of political violence than it does like a very silly, you know, silly lad. Let your school know the details and where you're choosing to lead your protest so they can help ensure safety. Get the word out. A large turnout, a media presence, and a crowd of onlookers will bring more attention to your event. Make sure that you and your fellow protesters know your rights so you can properly advocate for yourselves during and after the event. If you choose to engage in acts of civil disobedience, understand the possible consequences. While free speech is protected under the law, short of a proportionate response in self-defense, violent protest is never justified. Ooh. Short of a proportionate response in self-defense, afraid I agree with that one, guys. If you're initiating violence, even against, like, Nazi protesters, you're probably not accomplishing anything positive for our movement. I'll say that much. Now, if you're defending yourself, then, I mean, you're defending yourself. But if you're initiating that violence, I mean, why? You're giving them what you want, and you're making yourself the legal and moral villain. You risk arrest or disciplinary repercussions if you engage in violent or unlawful acts. Do it. Speak out and issues your person. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Very nice. It's good stuff. Yeah, you're giving them what they want. Yeah, exactly. If you throw that out there. True. Can I offer a polite counterpoint to ignoring them / not counter-protesting? I found the media still gives right-wingers attention if they're ignored. If I recall correctly, there was a white supremacist rally with 100 participants 2 years ago. The media still gave them attention / reported on them. People then jumped on the only 100 people, white supremacy isn't a threat, which may lure normies into complacency. While that's true, the presence of only 100 people is going to make that argument one way or another. With regards to, like, whether the media gives them attention, I feel like they're always going to give them less attention if nothing happens, you know? I mean, if the media is always going to report more on a clash between fascists and anti-fascists than just, like, fascists standing in a park, you know what I mean? The other big, like, issue is, like, the big problem is that non-fascist, like, protests are usually much larger than fascist protests, right? So if the two clash, the media is going to give them both equal attention. That kind of equivocates, you know what I mean? Like, if there are 2,000 anti-fascists and 100 fascists, it's like, the media will talk about both of them as though they were, like, opposite sides of the wall. You know what I mean? All right, I think I've made my points. I can only make them so hard. And also, you all ruined it. I'm sorry, guys. You completely ruined it. We could have gone over the Biden drone strike thing, but I guess he's getting away with it. In reality, I have to shower. I didn't even shower before starting this stream. I just rolled out of bed, which actually worked surprisingly well. This is not the only live stream that I am doing today. This is not the only live stream which is taking place. The second live stream that I'm doing begins in 3 hours. It'll be a panel with Hans of Akir. I'm going to also do the Biden drone strike after that panel. That is a promise. I'll do it even before Donos. But in 3 hours, the second stream will begin. And I'm gonna go shower because, you know, I feel like a stinky boy. You know, I didn't even shower before stream. I always shower before streaming. Before we go, we cool, chat? I hope those of you who disagree with me on these positions at least understand the logic with which I'm approaching it. You know what I mean? Nothing makes my heart hurt more than the feeling that there's a good thing we're trying to do, but we're doing it in a way that hurts ourselves. You know what I mean? Vaush's take on Antifa and black-bloc. Not going to a counter-protest isn't always as effective as he thinks it is. Just let right-wingers harass in front of abortion clinics. Epic. Vaush said the black-bloc and Antifa shouldn't bring clubs, or at least not show them. They should not needlessly attack people. They should do counter-protests, and that's it. Most black-bloc actions exactly that. Some of it is opposition G2026. Nice. Oh, nice. This person typed something, but then they edited it to Teehee Epic for reasons... Wait, why? This might be a hot take, but Antifa good. Actually, I prefer the optics of being violent than letting fascist gangs run amok. Do they really think that Antifa prevents this from happening? It's been proven time and time again that Antifa doesn't attack randomly. That's the fascist game plan. When did I ever said Antifa attacks randomly? Antifa rarely shows up where it's not needed, and I support our troops. LARP, okay, yeah. Let fascist gang... Is that really like the binary to you? It's Antifa stays exactly the way it is right now, or you let fascists rule the streets. Is that really the binary, the false dichotomy that we're going with? Goebbels literally wrote about this in his memoirs, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no. Oh no, 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 God! That if, when they were at their weakest, if they had been violently broken down and cast out, they would have had no pathway to power whatsoever. Dude, when Goebbels was talking about the heart of his fascist movement being destroyed, he didn't mean by college students with pepper spray going to counter protests. He meant an organized military strike against the Nazi elite, killing them and dispersing their administration to the wind before they had the power to wield the state. These are not the same thing. Yeah, Seattle Antifa would have stopped Hitler. God, if only Antifa had been there at the beginning of the Third Reich. Oh, this is what I mean. They don't know. It's all LARP. It's all LARP. Ah! The opening line from this implies, I think, that all forms of political violence are unjustified, which is the opposite of the position that I've held for the entirety of my fucking time as a YouTuber. Why? Why do you watch me? Why? Like, sure, the dipshits fuck with Dylan stream were cringe, but how is 3 people acting dumb gonna set off the stupid-ass take from Vaush, one that I've had for years, by the way, I swear to God. Then he reads over the actual example of Cable Street and goes, nah, nothing to do with America. I didn't say that! I said Cable Street was inapplicable because the massive numbers they assembled was reflective of the political climate in the 1930s. I didn't say it was England. The difference wasn't in the country. The difference was in the time. And I was proven right because back then the anti-fascists all wore regular suits. The Nazis were the ones in the black. See, look, guys. Back then, the fascists were the scary ones. Look at that. These are the ones look like creepy, off-putting fucking stormtroopers. The anti-fascists look like regular-ass dudes. The photos of these events make the fascists look incredibly bad. Look at this. You're leaving out Co-Intel Pro that is still active today? Yes, if you go to a protest as Antifa, the Co-Intel Pro is just seething. The Co-Intel Toe is just desperate to find out who the 19-year-old college sophomore is, if not for the fucking flimsy cotton mask that you wore. If only one of the most advanced illegal military, industrial, fucking intelligence apparatuses in the history of this country wasn't foiled by your 50-cent face mask, okay? Come on. If you really want protection against prosecution, you know what you want? It's not masks, it's numbers. If there are 10 Antifa people at a protest, you mark yourself. If there are 10,000, you don't. So make sure you're standing alongside fucking 99,999 others, okay? I'd prefer that. If you take off the mask and that puts more people by your side, it's worth it, okay? This point really came off at the beginning as opposition to militancy and actually fighting fascists so the normies could feel better, not gonna lie. Well, my point here is that you would have an easier time fighting fascists if you were with normies. Making the normies feel better means more turnout to protests, which means more of them stand with you. I can't do this. Why do you people even watch me? Why? Do you just hear every other word? Are you living in some sort of Ukrainian mud hut, getting the signal from my stream through a fucking wire antenna that you constructed by unfolding a coat hanger? Do you only hear like 6 seconds out of every minute of my stream? Why? Why do I constantly get misrepresented all the time in my own fucking community? I will live speak to my audience and have people repeat to me sentences that have nothing to do with what I've said. I know they're hearing me. They don't listen to me. Why do I even bother talking? This happens all the time. Constantly this happens. It's so aggravating. Holy fuck. Well, I feel the exact way. It's excruciating when he gets like this because he's just so obviously wrong to anyone who's been involved with organizing counter-protests, but he really should have someone on to talk about it. And there's no denying that a lot of Antifa types are like super duper haven't touched grass in a decade types, you know what I mean? There are a lot of, and I know this because I used to work with them. that there are a lot of people in Antifa who are, like, deluded about the prospect of a revolution, you know? They're like college students, and they're like, yeah, just a few more years, and we'll be building co-op farms in our backyard to sustain the local population or something like that. Like here in Berlin, there's a group called Omas gegen Recht, which translated means grandmas against the right. They attend a lot of counter-protest Nazis who come from more rural areas in the city to fight bullshit. Now, if these literal grandmas stand with your average Berlin 20 to 50-year-old smoking hippie types, they can actually already look scary to pearl-clutching people who live in rural areas and don't know they have mostly right-leaning friends. It looks scary to them because they feel weird with protesting gets it. What are we talking about? Okay, I love you guys. It's fine. Somebody pointing out that Goebbels quote has fucking nothing to do with what they said it has to do. Weren't you specifically talking about America? Yes, but it doesn't matter, because that would require them to listen to the words that I say. Really weird take from a guy that constantly yells on stream about how fascism is an imminent and serious threat to our democracy, and have talked about how close we are to literal brown shirts harassing people in the streets to also attack Antifa for trying to us. Damn! Maybe we should adopt tactics that get, like, average-ass fucking normies involved in anti-fascist action instead of adopting some weird, LARPy, pseudo-effective fucking black-bloc strat that we copied off Europeans that doesn't work for us any better than giving, like, Nazis more news attention whenever, like, 50 of our people end up, like, clashing against 50 of their people, and all the average fucking media consumer can see is, like, two evil people fighting evilly. I remember sometime back in 2019, I looked over the history of a bunch of these protests, and it turns out that, yeah, for the most part, big, spectacular confrontations between fascists and anti-fascists tend to benefit the fascists. Because guess what, guys? Who is attracted to blood? Not normie anti-fascists. Fascists are. The promise of violence attracts movements their side, not ours. The more violence they're able to stir up and record and play the victim over, the more they're able to propagandize it and recruit from their far-right normie base. Whereas on our side, most people we would want to pull from are people who would want to move away from violence, because we appeal to the broader normie base. Most people are anti-fascist, even if they don't know it, and even if they don't know what fascism is. Vaush having a bad take in pursuit of good optics. Truly no one would see this guy. I'm banning all these people. We're going. It's happening right now. We're answering the subreddit question. It's happening. Get out. Please leave. Let me out. Let me out of this nightmare. My Reddit is completely untenable. I don't know how people have Reddits. How do they do it? How does Hassan do it? I know how Destiny did it. He just banned everyone. Maybe he was right. I shouldn't have made fun of him for that. I feel like most American takes on Antifa/black-bloc are far too American. Thanks. Damn. Crazy. If only I had said I'm referring to America. Yes, they do in EU all the time. What are we talking about? I'm talking about America, Comrade Robin Hood. How many times do I have to say that? Over here in Germany, normies go to anti-fascist all the time. Yes, I'm talking about America. I'm talking about America here. I'm talking about America here. I've said that. Europe's a different situation. With age comes experience. Look at the peaceful protests of the 60s. Even Gallup has the polling to say so, and Americans expressed more positive attitudes towards non-violent demonstrators by civil rights activists. Which makes sense. And then here's a journal quote. Scholars argue that non-violence is likelier to cause political change in comparison to other strategies, including violence. This study identifies issues throughout this literature ranging from coding procedures, observational sampling, to interpretations of phenomena. If unarmed violence, reactive violence, and omitted cases are analyzed, nonviolent success rates are worse than formerly considered. Inclusion of 19th century cases and previously unanalyzed cases from the 20th century reveal that nonviolent campaigns experience a 48% rate of success, whereas campaigns that adopted unarmed violence were 61% successful, campaigns utilizing reactive unarmed violence were 60% successful, and 30% of fully violent campaigns were successful. Doesn't this just mean fully violent campaigns are vastly less successful? What does this have to do with what we're talking about? Also, yeah, that could be 1,800? Oh, I can't do this. Never mind. It's all fine. We're okay. True! There we go. Leave your Reddit before you lose your mind. Oh, God. The Joker was right. Specifically, the Joker in Suicide Squad, 2016. I don't know if it was in 2016. No worries, folks. This is just one in millions of Joker moments that I have every single day, okay? It's totally fine. It's very much par for the course, and this is why you should never, ever do politics or express your opinions online. Don't you think at this point it's clear most arguments like this are misinterpretations of what you actually mean? They're almost entirely misinterpretations of what I actually mean. All criticisms that I get are misinterpretation. And that's not like vanity on my part. They clearly don't see things that I say, you know? I'm not Jordan Peterson where I speak in allegory and then whenever I get like called out in it, I like default back to 78 other books. I clearly state things multiple times in a live format, and it just doesn't get included in the retinue of what people respond to. Most criticisms? Did I not say most criticisms? It feels like all of them. Lord knows I get a lot of bad faith criticism.